What's up, y'all? It's your girl Sang, and today I'm going to be doing another recap video. Last time I did this is when Ye was on Alex Jones' InfoWars show, and I couldn't show you guys video footage of that because Alex Jones is like banned on everything, and I don't feel like having my YouTube account clipped. Just like last time, I can't show you guys video footage of this interview that Ye recently did with Gavin Mcinnes. If you don't know who that is, he is the co-founder of Vice. I don't believe he's with them anymore. He was with Vice when Vice was good. That's when he was with the Vice. And now he has his own website called censored.tv, where if you want to pay for the month just to see the Ye interview, it's like $10. Just letting you guys know if that's what you want to do, to head on over there to actually see the video footage. But it's behind a paywall, so if I put it on here, they're banning me. I've already seen other people's videos get taken down. I'm not going to play the game. I'm not going to play the game. But to get into this, Gavin pretty much called his episode Saving Ye. And his whole thing is that he wants to save Ye from anti-Semitism. He wants to walk him back off of this ledge that he thinks Ye is on. And that's pretty much all it is. That's the whole point of him going down there, because he says going down the Jew road is basically a dead end. You're just like going to constantly be mad at somebody that's not causing your problems. So he flies out to LA. The interview's at a secure location. It's basically Ye's headquarters, where we saw like Nick, Fuentes, and Sneeko go into what I did when I did the Sneeko video. Where they were going into, that's where Gavin went. So, to start out. Okay, so just for clarity, this interview was actually shot 2 days after the InfoWars interview with Alex Jones. And then it's Ye, and then Nick Fuentes is also there. Also, Nick talks. Like, when somebody asks him something, Ye doesn't jump in, so we actually get to hear Nick's thoughts on a few things, and we will cover that as well. Everything I'm about to tell you, unless I say it is out of my mouth, is literally out of all these people's mouth. These ain't my thoughts, expressions, none of that. I'm just telling you literally word for word what these people said. Let's go ahead and start with it. So he asks him, how does he think this bodes well for his campaign? Ye thinks what he's been saying is awesome for a presidential campaign because it shows he's honest and he understands the state of the world. Gavin says Hitler has a bad reputation and brings the conversation to the Holocaust, where Ye then says that's not the only Holocaust. He says abortion is one right now, then goes on to say what's controlled by the Jews, so majority of media, banks, malls. That was a weird toss in. And then says history is controlled by the winners, and says Jews were upset because Hitler was kicking them out of the country. Once again, these are all their stuff out of their mouth, word for word. Then he goes on to name a few Jews and says they're getting soft out here because he gets to walk around and say the truth out here like he says, and before he can finish it, guy in the back drops the headphones, which derails him, and he immediately says Jesus is king and leans into what Christ wants him to do and repents where he falls short as a man. And then he thinks to get back to where we need to be as a country, we need Christian leaders, since we are a Christian country, that won't bow to the likes of Jared Kushner, Ron Emanuel, and then goes on to say that Ron DeSantis is a fake conservative. Gavin says, let's have an intervention here for you and Nick. Yes, 80 to 90% of Hollywood is Jewish, and most of the media is, and he throws out 80% for the media. However, you're talking about white liberal elites with high IQs who are also secular. Secular atheist Jews dominate this too. This is a trait that's a liberal trait, and then he goes on to add Kamala Harris and Obama into that mix. And he doesn't like when Jews get pulled into this because he knows that there are conservative Trump-loving Jews who are completely different, whereas Ye should just be mad at white people in general. Like, so basically just whites, not Jews. Ye then says he just lumps them all together. That's why his tweet said Jewish people. Gavin is kind of uncomfortable for a minute right there. Gavin then gives the example. Blacks are overrepresented in violent crime, but when you meet a black person, you start over and you don't lump them all together with that. Do you do that with Jews? Ye says no. They laugh, and Gavin says this intervention isn't going well. Gavin notices that Jews are a tenacious bunch who are really good for the RNC movement, and they tend to get the system. Ye says they complicate the system and they put it in Yiddish. Gavin says every system needs the hipsters, hackers, and hustlers, and explains who is good for each one of those roles. And while he's explaining this, he goes on to say that himself, Nick, and Ye are the hipsters. Then he goes on to explain who the hackers are, and then he said the hustlers, the Jews would be in the hustler category. Yeah, Ye didn't like that. He was like, yeah, so there's stereotypes for a reason. And that's kind of his, that was his little spiel on that. Ye then goes on as they talk more. He says he believes that they'll get the Jew vote, but it won't be much because there's only 5 million Jews in America. Now, Ye, just pause. Now, this is me talking right now as we pause. Bro, why do you think that, though? Their numbers, like, we can talk all day what we believe the actual Holocaust numbers are, right? It's like, it wasn't 11 million, it was 6 million. But out of that 6 million, the full 6 million wasn't next, it was a mix of everybody. Either way, numbers got decimated, no matter how you want to look at it. That's why do you think their population is so low? I said this in another video, like, for them to have such a small population, but to actually hold a lot of the wealth in the world is amazing. Yeah, I think it was a video where I was talking to the black community, where I was just like, you need to start following the blueprints of what they're doing in their community and what the Asians are doing in their community. Because I was basically explaining how wealth was held in each community, and in the black community, we don't really hold that much wealth, and we need to start following blueprints of how other people do it. But yeah, it's like, bro, why do you think that number is so tiny and small? It goes on to say, there's 260 million potential voters here in America, yet Jews run America. They have China scared. He brings up Russia, Africa, and then says Jesus is king, and then explains the power structure. So, pause. Ye gets into conspiracy theory mode right now. Unpause. So he says, the structure is you have the old Italian families at the top, then the Vatican, which is the blood of Peter, not Paul, and then it goes on to say that Peter denounced Jesus. Then you have BlackRock and Vanguard, then the government, and then Hollywood, and then he gets on a small rant about R.E. Emanuel. Says he wears the mask that he's wearing to not have to show his face so he can think and channel more properly and just free speak it without having to like worrying about what he's saying because his face is exposed. Which, pause, once again, that's cool to have that thought process, but we know it's you at the end of the day. So to sit there and be like, I can say whatever I want without my face attached to it, your face is still attached to it because everybody knows you're Kanye. So they're still going to attach everything you say to your face, regardless if that mask is there or not. And it is the same Balenciaga GIMP mask he wore in the InfoWars interview. Unpause. He then goes on a rant about how no one has exploited the black culture as much as Nike has. He says they gerrymander black people and use how they like, and he explains it by saying how Nike puts Black Lives Matters on like their clothing and stuff, and how they basically use black people to make their money. He then goes on to how they give the community the sugar. So he's talking about the black community at this point. So how we have broken homes, how we are given money if a father is not inside the household, drugs, sex, things of that nature. Basically, if you go down to the hood, and every negative thing you see down in the hood, and that's been there for decades, that's what he is speaking on. And he says because those people don't know what freedom and prosperity tastes like, they push it away if you decide to show them freedom and prosperity, basically new ways. So he starts talking about that. He says how all of that is run by Satan. Then he goes into how he grew up and how they used his mom to separate him from his dad. So if you don't know that story, basically, because he retold it in this interview too. He basically said how these liberal people told his mom like, hey, we'll have you go to school up here, but you need to come alone, because he was in Atlanta. So she took him to Chicago so she could have this job at this school without his dad being with them. But we all know Kanye was raised in the hood. So he wasn't in a good environment separating him from his dad. He goes on this whole rant. Then he brings up Adidas wouldn't take meetings with him despite him bringing in over 60% of their sales. He basically brought Adidas back to life, which that is true. He did. It wasn't nobody rocking Adidas like that until they got Kanye. He says he hates being used by the Kardashians. He said he couldn't even be like the pillar of his household because they had to run everything. They wouldn't even let him do a Christmas party. He seemed pretty bitter about that, but my man, you knew the family you were marrying into. Like we all saw it, but as we move along, you'll get why he was messed up. Said he was used by Trump. Says everyone wants to use him because the black community is used by everyone to get what they want. And then he got into like the whole black vote or even other things, how they use the black community however they want to make money, destroy them. he gives an example. He then goes on to give an example of how Jews don't abort their kids and marry within their tribe, but will give America porn and use that to destroy the rest of us. Gavin then says that there are Jews that suffer from it just like everyone else, which I have to agree with Gavin. Like, drugs and porn and all that isn't just for one race. Every race is affected by that, right? Ye then goes on to say drug dealers get addicted to crack too. I'm sorry, but it was funny when he said that, and he basically didn't care. Then says the destroying of the community is Satan, Jesus is king, and if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, then you shouldn't be in control of anything that the USA produces. Gavin then says that's going to be a tough thing to institute. Ye disagrees. He also thinks Hitler will help his campaign. I don't think that's going to happen, Ye. A lot of people are not rocking with you. I understand the Alex Jones interview. He said he was about to own this and run with it, but like, bro, it's not going to help your campaign. Like, I don't know who's telling you this is going to help you. It's not. You're not about to become president off of that. Gavin gives the example of what will you do to Jews if you're in office first day? So yeah, it was kind of like, what do you mean what I'm going to do to Jews? And he was like, well, you have all these problems. Like, are there things you would institute? So Ye then goes on to say like they're very intelligent and he's not going to do anything dangerous to them. That was a weird question too. Like, what are you going to do to the Jews? You're making it sound like Kanye's going to like kill them. Maybe his line of thinking with all the Hitler stuff, but Ye also says he loves everybody. I don't know. So Kanye kind of had to put that out there. He's like, I'm not about to do anything dangerous to them, bro. Like, and then Ye goes on to say that he thinks they all need to work for Christians. So he doesn't believe Jews should be in charge of anything. They need to be under people. Which, pause, these are my thoughts now. That's not gonna work. This is America. Anybody is able to get to the top of anything, to get rich, to make moves. You can't institute that. At that point, we not like a democracy anymore. It's back to the interview, right? So they talk about that for a second. He then goes on to say how his goal was to create affordable clothing for college kids, like how he did his music when he first started out. He made affordable music for college and teenage kids, and how he remembers being a teenager and a kid wanting all these cool things but couldn't afford it. So he said that was his goal. And when he got to Gap and all these other companies, and they gave him a store in Atlanta where they felt like they could call him King Ye on FaceTime, and they would pitch their dumb, stupid Jewish ideas to him, and he was sick of it. So he said DEFCON 3, and he was tired of their stupid ideas. Once again, Ye's words. He then goes on to say he loves Jewish people, all people, the people who cancel his accounts, but they shouldn't be in charge of anything. They've had their run. Gavin tries to explain how he can't regulate that if Ye makes it to office. He says, didn't Jews make you rich? Ye then says, and where is that today? Gavin's kind of like, I guess they froze your accounts, right? And Ye goes on to say, they took the IP, they smear me every day because they can't use my black voice, and he claims he's far happier because of it. And then he goes on to say that signing that record deal with that label was him entering the Jew slave ship. Then he goes on, he rants a little bit more about that, and then he goes on to say that Hitler was an inventor and a Christian. Pause real quick. If you guys saw the video where Alex Jones broke his silence on his Ye interview, Alex Jones actually goes a little bit into that, and he's like, I don't know where Ye is getting his information from, but Hitler was an occultist. Like, he didn't invent the things that Ye claimed. He wasn't a Christian. He explains all that in the interview with Steven Crowder. It's right here on my channel. I'll put the link at the end of the video so you guys can check it out, but I just wanted to put that information in there real quick, unpause. Gavin speaks about how Jews took hip-hop from the Bronx and made it very popular to where it's at today. And Ye says Jews have done good and bad. And Ye wants them to look at the bad they've done and make change of that, but they don't want to have that conversation with him. Gavin thinks it's wrong to blame the Jews, and then he starts giving examples why. And this is when Nick starts talking. Nick says liberalism has poisoned everyone. Then he goes on, this was the crazy part. He then goes on to say that when he was coming up as a kid, that kids loved Hitler. So Gavin was like, My man, what are you talking about? You mean to tell me you 8 years old and you and all your kid friends are loving Hitler? And he was like, and Nick was like, well, I wouldn't say when I was 8, but I'm speaking about 4chan and such. So Gavin was like, oh, so things you saw online as a teenager. Because that threw me off too. I'm like, bro, what kid is in love with Hitler? When I was a kid, I loved Power Rangers, you know what I'm saying? Pokemon, Digimon. Ain't no way I'd be sitting there talking about some, putting the hand, I can't even do it. But yeah, that was weird. That was weird. Also, this is my first time ever hearing Nick speak like this. If you've been following the video series, because everybody was like, he's a white supremacist, he's a white nationalist, and I'm just like, all I ever heard was this guy speaking like a normal, regular person on panels with Sneeko, Destiny, and like a bunch of other minorities where they were all cracking jokes with each other. I guess, I don't know. Now I'm hearing him speak like this, and I'm like, oh, my bro, I see why people are calling you this. That's wild. Nick goes on to say that there's something compelling about having pride in your people. Then says, cultural Marxists as well as Jewish leftists all got kicked out of Germany under Hitler. Then says Judaism, it's not that they don't believe in God, but they don't believe in Jesus Christ. Then gets into ethnically/religious ways of how you can be Jewish. For those that don't know, if ethnically you could be, so me, ethnically, I am Jewish. That's through the bloodline coming from my father's side of the family. So coming from him, his parents and their parents, so on and so forth, is how I'm ethnically. Now, religiously, I was a little bit coming up, but I practice Christianity now. So there's 2 ways to go about that. You can convert your religion, or it can be like the actual bloodline thing. And that's what they were explaining during this part. Okay. Nick goes into them not believing in Jesus and says, when you get a media that doesn't believe in Christ. So then he goes on to says, Jesus is the only way to God. What happens when the media doesn't practice those things? Then he says, you get pornography. He explains that Catholics would have never started TMZ. Gavin has to reel him back by saying not everyone is religious, and Muslims also wouldn't start those things either. So, and then Gavin gives the example that if all 3 of them moved to Japan, they wouldn't be yelling at the Japanese about their beliefs and all this other stuff. They respect it because they live there. And he says we should do the same thing here in the West with all the different beliefs that we have in America. Ye says we need to do the most because God gave us the most. He goes on a whole thing about that. Gavin then asks Nick how would he fix the Jew problem if they're in office. Nick said he changed the communication, and we need Christian standards to guide that. So once again, he goes back to saying if we have Jews or atheists running the media, then they can't help usher people into heaven by believing in Jesus. So his whole thing was that you need Christians running all of this. The goal is to be Christian. You want Christians in charge to make this a Christian country again, so more people could be Christian, so more people could get into the gates of heaven. That's basically what he was explaining. Gavin then says he believes Nick will be president one day. I'm gonna be real with y'all real quick. I don't think that. I don't think Nick will ever be president one day. If he does, I'll be shocked and I'll be like, oh, Gavin was right. But today, right now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. Ye said outside of financial blowback, because Gavin asked how like his relationships have been. Ye says outside of the financial blowback, he's also had relationship issues as well. There's a clip that went out for free that they didn't show in this, where Ye says his fiance, the girl he's been dating, left him by text message after the Alex Jones interview. So he then goes on to say that he does want to be married, and he does take full responsibility of his porn usage when he was with his ex-wife Kim, to where he thought his ex had to be those girls on camera, which would explain, despite all of us knowing the Kardashians and how they are, why he wanted her so bad. Because he said, like, ever since he saw her sex tape, he was like, oh yeah, that's the girl, that's who I want to be with. And he got her, right? But now that he knows all of this is wrong and messed up, and he was, I guess he was also trying to mold her, because when they first got together, he did purge her wardrobe and all that, and it was like, you're gonna wear what I tell you to wear, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do that. And he's come to the conclusion now that all that was wrong. So I don't know if he talked to a pastor or a therapist about that, but that is good that he realizes where he messed up with his first relationship, because he was not religious in that first relationship, and now that he wants to be religious, he wants to make that change. And he says he does want a woman that's equally yoked as him. And he goes on to explain how in the McDonald's movie and some other movie, I forgot the name of it, he said those guys messed up in their first marriage, but he said when those guys found their second wife, not only was the marriage better, but they went on to create the #1 and #3 companies in the world. So he believes that's going to happen for him. And then because they brought up porn and stuff, Gavin gets into a whole spiel about why porn is bad. Then Ye doesn't think he got banned from Twitter because of the swastika / Star David, converged picture where it was like mingled in together. He believes it's because he spoke down on porn on Twitter. So he says, he then gets into how porn destroyed his family. He says it's linked to trafficking. He gets into how it contributes to pedophilia. And then he also says it's wrong to have sex when you're not married. He then says to follow the red letters that's in the Bible. So for those of you that don't read the Bible, in the New Testament, every time Jesus talks, it's in red lettering. So that's what he's talking about. Then he says, if you do something you shouldn't be doing, you need to repent because God sees all. He explains how the IG thoughts give away everything for like 30 likes and clout and all that. And goes on to say that Instagram, also promotes pornography. Then he goes on to say, pray for Instagram, and then says anyone who likes a photo of a woman with a string up her butt is a sexual predator. Then Gavin gets into a spiel off of that, saying how those women, the ones that freeze their eggs and they start getting to their 30s and 40s and they never get married and have relationships and their eggs are still frozen. He says those women who ruin their lives and they become journalists will then go on to try to destroy everybody else's lives because they can't have a family. And Ye and Nick agreed with that. Gavin then asked the future of Ye's presidential campaign. So he's like, who are you thinking about as a running mate? Ye says he is thinking about Candace Owens as a running mate, but he has a major problem with Ben Shapiro because Ben controls Candace's voice. He says he's open to a lot of different ideas and then says he hasn't filed for running yet. So Gavin asks, like, if he was to get into office, what his policies would be. So first one, what would you do about the abortion policies? Ye said it'd be illegal. What about immigration? Ye paused for a minute and then he was like, he needs to discuss how to work with South America. So something about bringing like the industry back to how it is and getting people across. He says he has to speak to people, but he doesn't have like a definitive answer right now to answer that. Then Gavin asks about gay marriage. He says Ye says 95% of gay people don't get married anyways, and it's a liberal thing to put out those headlines, and his policies will be to follow the Bible strictly. Gavin asked, do you think you're born gay, to Nick, and Nick says he believes it's developmental more than anything, and then they get into the trans suicide rate, which is high. Ye goes on to say Jesus loves everyone and not to judge, but we can't ask our Christian brothers if they follow the word of Christ. Ye gives a list of all that he loves. It's a long list. Amongst the people in that list is Nazis, the slave owners, Zionist Jews, Kim's sex tape holder, the doctor that killed his mom. He loves everyone because that's what you're supposed to do, because that's what Jesus did, and said they'd follow the Bible if he was to run the country. Then they get into like a final talk because Gavin's starting to end it, and he says, I guess my intervention didn't work, yada yada yada. So back on the Jews, Ye basically says the Jews can't force their pain on everyone else. They need to forgive Hitler today and let it go. And that's where the interview ends. Gavin is then in his car going back to the airport or hotel, and he says he spent 5 hours with Ye. He tried to talk him off the ledge in terms of the Nazi stuff, and it didn't work. He doesn't believe Ye is anti-Semitic. He thinks it's actually all art. He's like, Ye brought art from music to fashion and now politics. And because politics is used to definitive answers, it's weird to hear and see this, and it's confusing at best when somebody says they like Hitler. So that's it. That's the interview. That is the recap. I hope you guys liked it. What do you think? What are your complete thoughts if you actually saw the interview? What are your thoughts about this one? What are your thoughts in general about Kanye? Just let me know. Just let me know in the comment section down below. He is really leaning into this. Like when he said in the Alex Jones interview, that's what you guys called me, so I'm owning it. He's really owning it. He is really owning it. Take all that out the equation. Thanos snap it, never happened. When he speaks on his presidential campaign, just strictly following the Bible, I don't believe that's gonna work. Like I said, if you took all this out the equation, he never came out and said he loves Hitler and all this. Because even though he keeps saying he loves everybody, the media is not focused on that. So even if you take that out the way and it's just like, oh, his policies are that of the Bible, I still don't think he would win. I still don't think he would win presidency. Because most of the country isn't religious anyways. So, But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss when I drop a video. And until next time, you already know who it is. It's Sang.